All righty, let's call this meeting to order. Angie, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Bailey.
Here.
Commissioner Bunting.
Present.
Commissioner Lumberman.
Here.
Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Murphy.
Here. Righty. John, could you lead us in prayer?
Heavenly Father, we ask that you would please bless us and guide us as we consider the interests of the people of Gratiot County. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Born and unborn. Okay. Anyone have any additions to the agenda? Hearing none, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Commissioner Bailey. Second by Commissioner Lemmerman. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, nay?
I'm going to vote. I was not here for the last meeting, so I abstain on that.
Okay, Jen. All right. Okay, and approved, one abstention. Commissioner Bunting. Okay, so we have an agenda. Brief public comment. Anyone like to make any public comment? They come forward to the, I still got this big sign up here that says, everybody to that podium.
Hello, Fred Short from Invenergy. Just wanted to provide a quick update on the Heartland Farms Wind Project. As some of you may be aware, we did receive approval last week in Washington Township for the 6 turbine locations we're looking to install down there. The update I wanted to give to the board was that now that we're through Washington Township, we're starting to get a better line of sight on construction schedule and start to check off some of those pre-construction conditions that were outlined in our special land use requirement that we received here at the county from the County Planning Commission for Newark and North Star Townships. One of those items is the decommissioning agreement that we need to reach with the county. So we are still working through that, going to be very similar to the ones you've seen before, but coordinating with Hvac to make sure that they have signed off on that form. Wanted to flag for you as we will be submitting to the county board to review in a couple of weeks here, and then hopeful to get on an agenda in July to discuss that with you. But just wanted to provide the heads up that we will be coordinating with Hvac and then submitting for your review a decommissioning agreement in the coming weeks.
Fred, does that go back to the planning commission and then come to us, or does it come right to us?
That will be just board approval on the decommissioning bond. The other items are mostly through the zoning administrator and to the planning commission a bit on the other kind of check the boxes before construction, but decommissioning does come back to the board. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you. Matt, you see anybody online?
I see one individual. I'm not sure if they're on the agenda or here for public comment.
Okay, if anybody would like to make public comment that's online, please go ahead. If you're on a cell phone, I think it's *6, unmute yourself. All right, let's move ahead. We have the consent calendar. Before we do that, I just want to mention I have an agreement to sign on the old landfill for mowing. It's in the budget and everything without objection. I'm going to sign it. It's in the budget and everything. Correct. So
What's that for?
the mowing at the landfill.
How much?
$1,600. Yeah. I saw it in here somewhere. $1,650. All righty.
Did it go up or is it the same as it's been?
It's pretty close.
That's what it was, wasn't
I
it?
believe it's been the same for 3 years running now.
Oh, that's a deal for this year with the price of gas. All right. Looking for anyone want to split anything out from the consent agenda? Now we're looking for
Approve the consent agenda.
motion by Commissioner Bailey, support by Commissioner Smith. Any discussion on the consent agenda? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay. Motion passed. Okay, we're on, do we have an administrator's report? No.
We have an administration report.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's in the agenda.
Okay, then that's what we're up to.
Okay, well, thank you. Just gonna go ahead and share the stats in the admin report. The first item, I just want to pull something out of communications real quick, just to cover it so that you're aware of it. The IRS has updated its mileage reimbursement midway through the year this year. It's the first time that I've seen them do it since I've been in a professional capacity. It's not a lot. It's only 4 cents, from 58.5 cents to 62.5 cents. Our travel policy just adopts what the IRS has issued, so there would be no need for anything from the board. We'll send out information to our employees so that they know, and we'll update our travel reimbursement form. So it starts on July 1st. Thank you. First, from Human Resources, I wanted to give you a few statistics and what's been going on in the last month in HR, just to let you know the status of the current job environment. Some of the projects that Sheila has been working on include completing the workman comps audit, facilitating the elected official salary work group, security awareness through IT. That's very important. Putting our new employees through security awareness as they come into our environment so that our data stays as safe as it can. And she's utilizing a new platform for onboarding. We have some staffing numbers in there. Our full-time employees are at 144 as of the end of May. We have several vacancies, and we have had vacancies, and this doesn't even include everything. You'll hear, these are just the ones we are actively filling. Soon you'll hear some additional vacancies within district court that they haven't begun actively filling yet, but still looking for park rangers, telecommunicators, dispatchers, central dispatch, always accepting applications for road patrol and corrections. Deputy drain commissioners open, head cook, site managers at COA. Few hires that we have had, the front of the court clerk, the probate register, and we're going to have to open up OCC case manager once again after 2 declines. So that's more than what we've seen in the past. It just goes to show the current job environment. New hires that we have had include the register of deeds, corrections, a road deputy, front of the court, probate register, and some park rangers. And Sheila has been working with reclassification requests in the following departments, including prosecutor equalization, parks and rec, which you have seen in the past meeting, and district court, which we will discuss later today. Update from equalization. In our last meeting from equalization, you had asked Keegan to follow up what steps the county would need to do in order to restore the millage or recover the original millage amount that has been decreased every year by the Headley. And he researched this and got back with me. In short, what would need to happen is a millage override, and a millage override would have to go to the voters and it would have to be voted on to restore it back to its original amount. And it would require a simple majority to pass. Most recently, Montcalm County in 2016 presented to their residents a millage override, which had failed. In the communications, I included more information on what a millage override is, as it was researched by MSU Extension. If you are interested in looking at that further, that's where you'll be able to find it.
So when we reduced that down last time, I think I left the assumption that we could just raise that back up, but that apparently we can't do that.
We cannot. Not with-
We approved the maximum that we could approve, for the way I understood it. Is that correct?
Yeah, we did.
Correct.
Well, that's the law of the state of Michigan. It's been that way for well over 20 years. That's been a heavily rolled back amendment.
Right, but we decided to roll back our millage the last meeting, or was it the meeting before?
Heavily rolled back. You said
It
it was.
wasn't with Headley though.
Correct.
Yeah, well,
Yes, it is.
Well, the Headley stuff is mandated, but I thought we were rolling our millage back.
we were accepting the Headley rollback.
Oh. I thought we just rolled our millage back a little bit.
It's Headley. It's Headley. And that's stated by law.
Then why were we talking about, I mean, it was all Headley. Why were
You
we?
have to do it here. It's one of those formalities you have to do every year. It's one of those things, it's just one of those things they have to be in the record.
Before we submit it to the state of Michigan,
Right.
it must be approved by the board.
But that wasn't when Keegan was here, right? That was when Keegan was here?
Yeah.
Yeah, about my head. Okay.
Do it every year.
I know that, but I thought we were talking about something different. That's why I was asking him to say, how do we get it back? And we were volunteering giving it away. I mean, I know the Headley, you got to roll that back, but. Okay.
Just another quick question.
Yep.
Can someone tell me, we've lost some people in the court system? They must have went and worked somewhere else. Because we're hiring new people all the time. So somebody had to leave. Why are people leaving? That's my question.
Should the job market, the job environment, a lot of it right now.
So they're leaving for a higher wage.
Yeah.
Or like,
And it's getting more difficult to fill, especially clerical positions when, depending on classification we're at, it might be in $14 an hour range. When you describe to them the responsibilities and the obligations and the commitments and the schedule, and they realize that, I got to show up every day. No, I actually got to be here. And then they can go down and work at McDonald's for $14 an hour.
but I'm just saying, you had a position, they left, whoever you had in that position left the county's employment to go somewhere else.
Not every one of them, but I mean, I'd have to go down.
Or you got retirements too also to fill?
One of them was just married.
Okay,
One of them was no longer in the position.
okay. I was just curious.
One of our probation officers left and actually took a job with Midland Dow Corning.
Well,
Dow Chemical.
you can't.
We wish her well, but we can't compete with the private sector, and we're the first ones to admit that. There's a difference between working for any municipality or government entity and working in the private sector. You got to make your choices.
Yeah.
We've always had turnover also, but the time period that these positions are open, it seems to be extended completely. And that's kind of what I'm trying to show you is the amount of vacancies continues to grow. Not because we're losing people faster, which we may be, but also it is a lot.
You're not backfilling the positions at a fair rate, if you, best way to put it.
I have a question. When you have a vacancy, how do you post that?
Website.
Do you put it in paper? Do you put it online? Do you go to Michigan Works?
We
I think all of you both.
online, we advertise in the specialty groups. The courts have their
State Court Administrative Office, they have a statewide website we advertise on. Sheila, I know, always puts it on Indeed and those websites that are job search based.
and Indeed has been extremely valuable in attracting at least applicants locally because
Yeah,
that's
it's always posted on the county's website and disseminated. We've also had occasions where we've literally sent an email out, said, hey, there's an opening, just send a mass email to 125 current employees and said there's a current opening. And then, of course, if somebody wants to transfer from one office to another, that doesn't necessarily solve our problem because, you know, if somebody transfers from one office to another, we've created a vacancy in another office.
Well, the reason I'm asking, I'm on the board for Michigan Works, and they also get funding from the government for training. And just recently, in fact, I can go back through my paperwork, they put out a guide of how many people were looking for, what jobs were open. And what kind of, the first page was people that you had to have a certain degree to get these jobs. And the next page would be like, kind of worked its way down. And that's why I wondered why you weren't advertising with Michigan Works. If you have someone out there that wants a job, but doesn't quite know how to do some of it, they have the money to train that person. They can do on-the-job training, and they will fund that for you until that person is up to par.
And I know historically, and Terry was a part of this too, when she was working with us, that we did utilize Michigan Works.
So if I can say something, we post through Commission on Law Enforcement Standards, MCOLs, LCATs for corrections officers. We checked into MCOLs because they were supposedly sending people through the academies at no cost to the municipalities. Where the problem of it is that they have to be unemployed. So if I want to send a corrections officer to the academy, Michigan Works will not cover it. If I want to send somebody that's already gainfully employed outside of the county, they won't pay for it because they already have employment. So you have to pick from people that are unemployed right now. And the market for that is just not very good. So we've already been down that avenue with Michigan Works because we want to send to the academy this fall. I had 2 internal candidates, 1 external candidate, and none of them will be covered by Michigan Works.
But that's because, again, that's because.
Money already.
Okay.
But Jan, that's a great idea. And as Terry, when she was in human resources, utilize Michigan Works, we should definitely do it. If we don't do it, we'll do it because it's another source of potential applicants, and we should take advantage of every source out there and every resource out there. So
Yes.
we'll make sure we do utilize them as another source.
Yes, because they had, not only did they post the jobs, we had a list of, like, for instance, how many nurses, RNs they needed. And it also told the area that they were in. But it also talks about like education and stuff like that. I mean, I think it's a good source of people, but there's also a lot of people that have been laid off or way back when, a few years ago or a year ago. And there's a lot of them that are saying, you know what, I'm really not happy with this job. I would like to do something different. And some have college behind them. That good example is the schools. I've only had very little college, but if I have a certain amount of credits, I can be a teacher at one of the schools. And you can go through a training for this. So I'm just saying that there's a lot of things that have opened up, and maybe, I don't know if it would help here or not, but I would think that with the courts, it would be a good resource for you. And the pay also tells, beside it, it will tell what the pay is for each one of these. And most of them are I mean, it's the average pay. And the counties that I'm with would be Isabel County, Gratiot, Saginaw, Bay City, and Midland. So it's pretty much, whatever they say Midland's getting, usually that same job over maybe in Gratiot County is getting the same thing, or it might only be off $1 or something like that per hour. I don't know. But anyway, I'd be glad to have the administrator come and even talk to you about jobs or how to work with them, or they'd be glad to work with us to help find people jobs.
I'd also be happy to have Sheila get a hold of you too to talk about that.
Okay.
So possibly Sheila could try to manage that aspect of it.
Okay, Chris, did you have more of your report?
I do. I would like to give you a quick capital projects update if that's okay.
Yes.
Currently, we have a jail HVAC rooftop unit that is ready to be installed for the jail. It was supposed to be installed on June 10th. Fortunately, we've had issues getting a crane in place, so that is still outstanding. I know there are some concerns about people working on the tire rooftop, black rooftop in 9,500 degree heat also. So this may be put off for another week until we get the temperatures down. We had two items come in from bid. One was the District Court and Board of Commissioners HVAC rooftop unit. Unfortunately, this one came in, the bids came in approximately 3 times higher than what our engineering firm expected them to when we budgeted for this last year. At this time, Tony Miller and myself are not comfortable moving forward with this project, so we will present this information to the administrator when she is back and see where she would like to go with it. We received 5, actually, I'd like to update that to 6 bids for the building facade repair. I'm happy to report that all of these bids came in within a range that we expected. Currently, Tony Miller is working on pulling out the information that is important to be presented to the board to make a decision on which contractor we should go for. Several of these contractors are looking to do this job different, that they're not using the same methods for the repairs, so we need to look at those closer. Circuit court and rotunda plaster repair, we put that out for proposals and nobody responded to it. At this moment, we're looking to see if we can perform some repairs in-house to make sure that there's no danger to our residents or to any of our employees from any of the plaster damage on the ceiling, and we will look to rebid that out. Health Department flooring, we are not the lead on this project, but we are contributing $10,000 from the ARP funds. The flooring has been purchased, but not yet delivered. So when that is completed, we will pay for that from our ARP. 10,000 of the 50,000 that will cost. The Health Department will be paying the remainder of that amount. Update on our blight. The first blight case that went through the court system has reached compliance. So the case will remain open until the date designated by the judge to ensure that it stays in compliance. But for the program that has been put together, this appears to be a success. And other blight news, the Village of Ashley still remains interested in the community development's blight services, but they have not yet submitted the paperwork to them. Veteran Services held Flag Day, a celebration on Tuesday of last week. Several of the commissioners were present along with many in the community from other municipalities, cities, villages. I just wanted to say that that was put together very well by Nancy Bozar.
I'll just make a comment on that. That was very nicely done. It was very respectful. And it gives you an overview of the ceremony that the services go through almost every day, with taps all the way through Reveille. And they did a great job. We had two honor guard from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base were here, and they worked with the flag, and it was very smart and very nicely done, very professional. It was good, very good. Sam was there.
Yeah, they did a nice job. Everybody did.
It was a very warm afternoon, and they served refreshments to everybody afterwards. It was wonderful. Animal control, some statistics from the past 3 weeks. Approximately 15 safety calls, 51 running at large. Wellness checks are at about 2 to 3 a day. At the time, there were 3 dogs in the shelter and 0 cats. Just to let you know what they're up to right now, summer is kennel inspection season. I got to learn about kennel inspections. I didn't know about that aspect. We have 88 registered kennels in the county right now. I put a few more stats in there. There's 3 classifications, up to 10 dogs, 11 to 40 dogs, and then over 41, there's different costs for licenses. 86 kennels in Gratiot County have between 3 and 10 dogs, and 2 of them have between 11 and 40. Tom Clark is about 90% of the way done with the inspection, so that's almost completed for the year for him. That concludes my administration report.
All righty, thank you, Chris. Anyone else have any questions? And we're going to move on to Commissioner Committee reports. Mr. Lemmerman?
I attended the Seville Township meeting a couple of weeks ago, and one of the issues that they had is we are a self-zoned township, and they have had delays on some projects where their projects go through our planning committee, and then there's 30 days. And then when the 30-day veto has come through, then they have to post it in the paper. And very often, depending on the date of the paper, they have another 7 or 10 day lag before business can be conducted. And they proposed a resolution where we, the county commissioners, could change that, and they would no longer have to present their ideas to the planning commission. I am finding out more about that. On the surface, it seems somewhat like a no-brainer idea, but I don't know how many townships are self-zoned, and I don't know if this is
We
something.
only have 6.
Yeah, and
6 that are self-zoned.
No, we have 6 that we maintain that are zoned by the county. The rest of them are all self-zoned.
and then, John, they brought that up with me. It seems to me, I looked into it, and there may be an issue that the state's requiring us to do it that way, but they need some more research. I can't remember quite.
It's something that I'm going to try to get my head wrapped around, and I may bring a resolution at the next meeting. Other than that, we have not had another airport authority meeting, but there has been a couple of ad hoc meetings about the airport. And as far as what the new airport authority might look like, and the how, as far as what would we do if the county was the main player in the airport authority. And still working on that, still slugging it out. And I'd like to thank Sam Smith, because he has donated probably at least 5 hours to this now. And so far, we're just talking and thinking.
I'm thinking you got to convince me. We had a great meeting yesterday.
Yeah.
We had a great meeting yesterday. I thought I don't want to go there. We had this lady come in who manages the airport and testing, and Chris was there, and it was just a matter of tell us how we can make revenue here, how we can do this. And we're just looking at dollars and cents to where, because my theory is I don't think we ought to pay $100,000 on an airport, but I think if we could get it close to even, and there might be some possibilities. We talked about a number of things, so I think it's good to keep talking.
And other than that, Chris Boosterhoff and Terry Ball and I met with, was it Peter on Friday morning? And we were talking about the county's investments and the format of the county's investments. And their presentation, it was a great presentation. I was excited about it. The value proposition is basically that for 0.1%, they would manage the investments for us. And it was, I probably shouldn't talk that much about it because we haven't talked any further about what we're going to do. But I just got to say it was a very good presentation. And I look forward to reporting more on that later. I was involved in a couple of broadband Zoom meetings, but I'll let George talk about that because he was as well.
John, just real quick, this zoning thing, Let me ask Fred, in self-zone townships where you're putting in wind, once it goes through their planning commission and they approve it or whatever, and the township approves, the board approves it, they don't come to the county, do they?
We saw this,
Self-zone.
we saw this in Washington Township most often and most recently. And what was interesting is they would send it to the county planning commission. And the county planning commission would review it and give their sort of suggestion back to the township. Although when it got back to the township, it's just a suggestion from the county. They did not necessarily have to take it. And in a township like Washington that, frankly likes to do things their way, I think regardless of what the recommendation was, in this case from county planning commission, said, okay, great, we've checked that box. Now we can keep moving as we want to.
But does Washington have their own planning commission?
They do, yes.
They do.
Okay.
So maybe that's what's happening in that township then.
Yeah, like they say, there's only, out of the 16, there's only 6 that we take care of. Rest of them are all self-zoned.
Independently zoned, rather than the 10 are independent.
I guess I don't know what they would have to come back to the county for. I mean, if they have a zoning process and a planning commission type of thing, and you got them there, went to the board.
10 townships that have their own zone.
I think Tish is on, so she may speak later on during public comments. But I think that they're facing what they feel is an unnecessary delay in getting things going.
Just have to look at call the lawyer, because we don't know. That's all I can suggest. The administrator gets back, we can unwind it.
Right.
Okay, any other questions for John? George?
Okay, yeah, we did have 2 broadband meetings with 2 people that we sent inquiries to. One was belonged in Canada and one was just straight down the road in Clinton County. Very informative. They've got some other things, numbers to send back to us of what's going to really cost, but no, it was good. It was a little eye-opening. Like I say, we're still expecting more information back from them. Also attended Hamilton, North Star, Lafayette, and I think there was one more. I was busy anyway. Other than that, I'm going to ask the report.
Okay, any questions? I was finally able to go to the Gratiot development meeting since school's over with. And I had some notes, but I don't know what happened. So I was trying to remember what I was going to say. I know a couple of concerns. We're looking like we're entering an unusual circumstance. We're having a slowing economy while at the same time low unemployment. So that could be interesting. We work our way through. A commercial that was there and the realtor agreed that we're looking at interest rates for 30-year mortgages at 4.75. So even now, so probably going to be entering a tough economy going from, I think we had one of the best economies just a short time ago. So that's all I have, Jan.
Okay, the last 10 days I've been spending it with our sister county, which is in Germany. They arrived, really it was the 7th. They were supposed to come in the evening of the 6th, but a 5-hour delay in Chicago put them in at 1:30 the next day in the morning. We toured around Lansing and around Gratiot County here. I do want to thank Fred Sharp from DTE for taking us on a tour through one of the wind turbines and getting pictures. And I also want to thank Commissioner Smith for hosting a dinner at his home. It was kind of exciting. Unfortunately, because of the Highland Festival, it was kind of hard to put them all together in one place. So they were at 3 different places, one at Saravilla and a couple of places at the college. But we had kind of fun. One of the colleges was right there. One of the dorms was across from the college and it had a really neat porch. So it was fun to go over there and sit and have pizza and visit, and lots of people from the community came to visit. This was put together kind of like at the last minute. We've been a sister county with them for, I believe, 20 years. We've been going back and forth. Last year, there was Tom Cooper and Tom Steer and myself that went to Germany. And in previous years, Commissioner Bailey and Commissioner Smith have been, I believe you've been there, haven't you?
My daughter,
Oh, your daughter, his daughter went over as a student. There's two groups. There's the students that go back and forth, and then there's the county commissioners and different ones in the community that have went. Dr. Saxena and his wife have been there. They also stopped in to say hello to several of the people that had come from Germany. Anyway, it was an exciting time to have them here, and yet kind of being that we put it together at the last minute was a little bit hectic too. So other than that, I think I mentioned to you that I'd had some illness. As of last week, I went through my last radiation, so I'm now going to spend the next 6 weeks just taking it easy and resting a little bit, and hopefully I'm going to go full time at the school this next fall. So I am feeling much better than what I was, and it looks like I will know in 5 years if I'm cancer free. But as of now, I have no cancer. So anyway, yes, that's good. So other than that, that was my report.
One thing, Jan, didn't I hear that, the Germans to fly over here, well, there was what, 10 of them?
Yes.
10 of them, and 5 of them, to be able to get on an airplane, they had to have all their vaccines, all their boosters, everything. And half of them come down and tested positive for COVID. So I would wonder about those vaccines if half of them got it anyway.
They had a box that they had ordered, and every morning, and I guess in the evening, they were testing themselves. So they would test, like say they test on a Monday, they had it. So they decided they had to quarantine, but they were still testing every day. And so the next day they didn't have it, and the next day they didn't have it, but then maybe the 4th day they had it. So one of them talked to a nurse, and the nurse said, quit testing yourself, because if you test every day, you shouldn't have to do that. They go on the 4th day, if you test again that you have it, then you're going to have to go another 5 days. But my feelings is that this case of testing kits apparently came from China, and it had a thing on the side. It showed that if it was red that they had it, but theirs wasn't. It was kind of like a striped thing. So they assumed that they might have it. None of them had any symptoms except for Christopher. And he had symptoms, but unfortunately, he had had a heart attack previous before he had come over here, a slight heart attack. And he came over, and coming over, they left Hamburg, went to London, had a layover in London. Then they went to Chicago, they had a 5-hour layover in Chicago. So instead of getting in at 10:30 on Monday night, it was 1:30 the next morning in Lansing. And then by the time we got them into where they were staying, it was 3:30 in the morning. And I had been in contact with his wife, and she was worried because it was kind of doubtful whether he should have came to begin with. And so he spent a few days just resting. And after he had gotten some rest, and I think too, being up a day and a half, because they lost a day coming over and they gain it when they go back, I think, or vice versa. But anyway, the only symptoms was that he was tired. They had no fevers, they had nothing. So just that they kept testing themselves. And they were pretty much, if they were trying to make sure that they weren't going to give anything to anybody else. And, but anyway, they were all back in Germany now and doing really well.
All righty, thanks, Jan. Sam?
I attended North Shade, Fulton, New Haven, and Newark. Basically, they're just taking care of their county stuff going on. I kind of told them, I leave them with, what's going on with where we're at with fixing our structures and things like that here, asking them if they have any questions for the county. Everybody seems to be plugging right along. Got a little bit of difficulty in Fulton. I don't know, Angie, I've already talked to you about their clerk and elections. They have a clerk that's, I don't know, he's going to resign or what he's going to do. He doesn't do anything. He's not showing up. And so they got an election coming up next month. And I think they were in contact. They told me last night with you, and you're going to kind of get them through it.
I've been in contact with Chad, so.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, okay. But that's about it.
All righty, thanks, Sam. Next,
One of the things I wanted to ask Commissioner Murphy, you had mentioned to us, or to me the other day, that when you went to the meeting at RSD that morning, that they talked about the interest rates going from 3 to 6, and then also that there were several that couldn't make their mortgage payments already.
yeah, the other thing that I had some notes to, but I don't know what I done with them. They're seeing, they mentioned from the bank that they're seeing them already starting to be behind on their mortgage payments and things. So, you know, we're probably looking at a pretty tough economy coming up.
It's very sad.
All righty, next, let's move on, new business. Judge McDonald, looks like you're up with the court reorganization.
Thank you for having us. And,
I was reminded,
I was here about 7 months ago, and I'm sure that I did promise not to come back.
because we seem to come back when there are these personnel issues, but we try to summarize this as best as possible for you. And thank Jen Woods with us, our court administrator. She's joined us by Zoom. So if you have any questions for her, she's available. And our district court administrator, Charlie Perkins, and our specialty court director, Brian Wagner, both here. So I may defer to them for some of the tough questions, but just want to make sure everybody got our packet of information. Try to lay that out. Got a lot of help. That looks like it came from me, but I can't take credit for it. Charlie, Brian, Jen Wood worked tirelessly on this with Chris, with Sheila, with Tracy, and a lot of input from everybody. So I appreciate it. So I can summarize, we have some openings and we need to fill. They've been open for quite some time. Some of that was by design because we didn't want to just rush in and fill positions as they were when we were going through these other organizational issues. So it gave us an opportunity, I think, to look more comprehensively at how our Office of Community Corrections was functioning and the additional duties and responsibilities they were picking up, and how Brian had kind of, and Brian and Charlie, when Charlie came on last November, had collaborated to kind of expand their interaction with the court system, both district court and circuit court. It starts more with district court because every criminal case starts in our court and then the felonies go on to circuit court. But the Office of Community Corrections has that touch on the case from beginning to end. So that's summarized in the letter. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I can give you a brief overview. I don't want to insult you all and read the stuff because I know you've looked at it. But we're asking quite comprehensively to reclassify those 4 district court positions. And I can talk about those in specifics if you'd like. And then to reclassify the 3 probation officer positions in the treatment courts. And I can explain that or have Brian explain that. But that's pretty well laid out there. And then the costs have been vetted through Chris and through Sheila and through Tracy. So this is a slight overall cost savings as far as county funds. And there is a cost increase for the requested reclassification of the 3 specialty court probation officers, but it won't be at a cost to the county because Brian has factored that in to his grant proposal and his grant application, and that's fully reimbursed to the county. So with that, if there are any questions about, you know, who, what, why, where, happy to.
I think my question really stems from October 1. We do budgets, we deal with unions, we do, you know, if you're non-union, you kind of get what the union got. There's a couple of people who have been here like 2-3 times and to reclassify people and stuff like that. What's changed? I mean, I don't think the courts are busier, or maybe, I don't know, but
yeah,
what has changed between a lady sitting at this desk doing this job and now is she doing this job over here too? Or because, you know, and then you got in here, like we're missing a couple of prosecutors, so we're saving some money there. But we're gonna be hiring prosecutors pretty soon, you know, I mean, I'm sure we're looking for somebody, we don't have any not because we're not looking, I'm sure. I mean, I didn't look and see if we had one on our website today, but we had a bunch of jobs there. So I don't understand what's changed, you know?
Well, since we were here back in late October, probably last year, when I needed to fill the district court administrator position and came here with Jen, and we kind of gave the overall presentation at that point. A couple things have changed. The Criminal Justice Reform Act and its impact on the court system. And most of that impact has fallen on our clerks and on probation. And district court probation, I think, was impacted, I guess, more directly and more comprehensively than circuit court probation. Why? You know, there's many reasons for that, but our volume of cases is no small portion of that. So we found that we had 2 district court probation officers and 3 specialty court probation officers. They weren't, while they were performing similar functions, they weren't really cross-trained. They weren't covering each other the way that Brian has them covering each other now. We didn't have the staff to do our in-house assessments, substance abuse evaluation assessments, risk needs assessments, because everything we do now from the court system mandated by the state has to be evidence-based. It used to be, it wasn't evidence-based as much as it was empirical or anecdotal evidence, but now it has to be objectively verified, evidence-based sentencing practices. Probationary orders have to be tied to an assessment and an evaluation that has to target the needs and the risks and identify those things that are going to be addressed on probation. So a lot of things have changed. Then the criminal justice reform and the lien work and the Secretary of State system being revamped as far as driver's license being impacted and when you suspend a driver's license and when you don't, and purging suspensions. And it's a morass of stuff, Sam. And I'd be hard pressed to sit up here and tell you exhaustively, but I can tell you those 2 gentlemen can tell you. So what we've done is we really said, we don't need 2 probation officers in district court because we're trying to reduce our probation caseload. Some of it is just reduced naturally because less people are being placed on probation. We're trying to keep a lid on how many people come to the sheriff's jail, but we absolutely need the jail. But we don't want to bust it at the seams like we used to, and that hopefully won't happen. There are more people in our treatment courts than ever before because the state has put more of an emphasis on that. Jump in. Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
Thank you. So the 2 district court probation officer positions we have are grade 10s. And as we took a good look at our district court probation caseload, we realized that, there's some things within this caseload specifically like delay of sentences that really haven't been sentenced or like at a pretrial status that our Office of Community Corrections could take the lead on supervising. So there's areas that we're able to reduce the overall district court probation caseload. As Judge mentioned, the Criminal Justice Reform Act can't put everybody on probation where you have to have some specific reasons they have to agree to. Recognize that the probation caseload is going to continue to reduce. At least we anticipate it will. So that 10 position, we decided, we need to have additional clerks in place because the same Criminal Justice Reform Act is causing us a ton of work in our clerks end of things. So as you can see, as we laid out the proposal, we can take that 10 position and turn it into a 7 position and add staff where we need it. And actually, at the end of the day, save the county money. So.
But then when here's what I see. So they come in at a starting thing and then you go down the road and now you've mentioned cross training. So you got a position 8 cross training at position 6. And when she learns that, then she's going to come back to be a position 8.
Yeah, so the answer is we rewrote our job description
with the exception of our chief clerk and chief magistrate, who's an 8, everybody across the board is a 7. And that's what's reflected in the various grids that I showed you. So we're trying to avoid that. So point being is that we have a civil clerk that plans on retiring in I think April of next year. And if she does that, we want to have flexibility in our organization where somebody can step in and take care of that. When I say somebody, everybody's going to be responsible for all aspects of the clerk's responsibilities. Some people have more expertise in an area, yeah, for sure, because for instance, our chief clerk's been there for 30 years and she knows the criminal end, like the back of her hand. So not going to have that variance in clerk positions like an 8 to a 6, as you mentioned. Everybody's a 7 with the exception of our chief. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I've given this a lot of thought over the weekend, just with different departments. And I stopped and talked to Sheila tonight about it. We sit down and do a budget. I mean, everybody brings their budgets in, all the departments bring their budgets in. If you looked at it and you said, okay, we're dealing with 2 or 3 unions, say that raise, whatever it is, and kind of everybody gets that raise. And what happens if you said, okay, your department, you're just easy numbers, you're $100,000 salary for your department and you get 2%. So now you're 120 or 102,000 or whatever it be, So your chief office person, whoever that would be, would manage that money and would manage that extra dollars, and say you split it up. Instead of saying this person who sits here gets this much and this person sits here gets that much, somebody in that office really knows. I don't know. I don't know anything about your operation, and I probably already know from outside coming in. I'm glad I don't. But I just.
And Sam, not to interrupt you, but what you're talking about is legally permitted and is done in some counties and in some court systems. But I'll defer to Chris. But my understanding is that the county would have to agree with the court system to give us a lump sum allocation. Then we would manage the court finances from the budget you gave us as our funding unit. And then we wouldn't have a line item budget under the county system like we do now. Some courts have a line item budget under the county system like we do in Gratiot. Some courts get a lump sum allocation and set their own budget. So they deal with their own union. They've got a lump sum appropriation from the funding unit, and they don't go back to the funding unit and say, hey, can we give this clerk $500 and this one $750? And because the county board isn't micromanaging or isn't managing the line item allocations like you are here. But that takes the board and the court system to agree overall to change the way that they've dealt with appropriations to the courts over the years. It's been suggested before. And Jen, you can chime in if you want. I know we had discussions about this quite a while ago.
Yeah, I know it comes up every once in a while. I think when it relates to the employees is when you run into an issue, because currently, while they're court employees, the funding comes through the county. And so I do think that would take some consideration before a change like that was made. I mean, I don't know that we'd be opposed to anything like that, but be very different as it relates to the employees of the court. I mean, I think we do that in general for the budget on some level, as far as, we may go over in one line item, and as long as we stay within our budget, we're fine. But when it comes to reclassifying employee positions, it's never been handled like that. We've always had to come back to the board for that kind of issue.
Sure. And let me also stress and point out that we're not asking to add positions. We're not adding additional employees in district court or in the specialty courts. We're dealing with the same number of authorized open positions. We're just reclassifying them. So we're not going to be adding any net bodies to the employment base.
And we're actually, the request is actually to go down for the main position, go down from a 10, down to a 7 to change the probation officer position to a clerical position. So that's where the savings comes from.
Right. And that clerical position will support both the court operations and the probation department as far as a clerk position, a deputy clerk position, which is a lot of our probation caseload on the lower risk offenders are really more compliance clerk oriented than they are intensive probation oriented. So that's a primary difference. Ryan can probably speak to that.
You see, what I'm seeing here is you're explaining like your staff and really what they're doing. And you're trying to explain that to us, for us to give them a raise. Nobody knows it better than you, and so I was just thinking of this the other day, that I'm talking about the sheriff's department, I'm talking about the treasurer's office.
Sure.
I'm talking about, here's your budget, and if we're negotiating with unions, and I'm not talking to anybody about this, but this is just me talking. But I'm thinking, if it's 2.5%, 3%, whatever works out with all these unions, it seems like everybody kind of gets the same number. So in the beginning of the year, come October 1, we have those budgets settled, or those numbers settled for departments. Sure. And say, here's your allotment for wages. Here's your allotment for your budget. You brought it in and we looked at it and you need 15 pencils or whatever you need. You got all that. And then here's your allotment for wages. And then you guys
figure it out.
You guys figure it out. And then we don't see it till like next, maybe August.
I think that's a great idea.
I agree. And I'll tell you what.
I don't know if that can work. I talked to Sheila about that, but.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to participate in a work group between the courts and county administration talking about that. I would suggest, Sam, that, from a finance standpoint, you certainly want Chris involved. You want to run it by Tracy. And then between us on behalf of the courts and circuit court, we're happy to talk about that. And that may be the way that everybody decides. It makes a lot of sense, but Jen's right. The devil would be in the details, because now there would be a shift of the direct employment responsibilities from a co-employer situation that we have now with county and courts, with us kind of deferring to the county personnel policy and the county's organization for those job classifications and pay structures, et cetera. It would come over to, you'd be a court employee. We get a lump sum allocation from our funding unit. These are court employees. These are non-court employees or county employees, and you'd still have your personnel system. We could have a different one. And it makes some sense because the functions are different. Now there's some offices that would be impacted that are kind of a hybrid. And Angie's would be one of them, because she's got clerks that strictly do clerk functions, non-court functions, and she has clerks that are principally assigned to the courts.
But that would be sorted out in her office.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're making, I don't even know what the number would be, but they're making a little more money than the lady doing death certificates for me, she would figure that out.
Sure.
She would have this much money and figure that out amongst her staff. I just look at it that every time these come, and I'm not choosing you guys, I'm only talking about it because you're here. But I look at it and think, I really don't know what they're doing. And probably the people that you talk to along the way don't know what they're doing. Why don't we just give you the money at the beginning of the budget and say, you work it out, and we'll see you next August, and we'll sit down and talk about what you're going to need next year.
I've been in your position years ago, Sam, and I don't disagree with you. I didn't disagree with you when I was on the county board, and I don't disagree when I was on the Alma City Commission. I think that's why we have administration, and if you're looking at your fiduciary responsibilities, it's how are we setting overall policies for the county? What are our priorities? And then when we deal with budgets, do we want to deal with the minutia, the details? Or do we want to say, here's the approximate cost to run this department. We make that allocation and the department makes their, allotments or apportions it out from there. But again, there's a lot of details to work out.
There's a lot of details. The bulk of that is really based on negotiating with unions, because if a union comes at 2 points, you can't say, well, we're going to give you guys 3 points.
Right. You'd have to, I don't know if we have unions do we have unions, Jen, that have a mix of strictly court employees and county employees?
I think there's a little bit of crossover, not a lot, but there are 1 or 2 employees that cross over. But if you think about it, we've sort of done what you're asking, because the request today really has to do with just reclassifying several positions, but it's a cost neutral, it's a cost neutral request. I mean, it actually saves a little bit of money. So we really are working within our budget and just trying to reallocate our work staff, to do what we need to do. So, I mean, I think we've tried within the current structure to do that by not having to come and ask for more money. At this point, the structure requires us to ask the board's permission to change classifications of court employees.
But what I'm saying, Jen, is you could have done this 2 weeks ago. It fits in your budget. You would have just done that. We wouldn't have known it.
Well, I mean, that's a whole new concept, though. I mean, we've always been, I'm not disagreeing going forward that we want to change something, but I mean, that would have been very different for us to just gone and done that without getting the board's permission.
No. I'm not saying you should have done that. I'm just saying, is that something we should take a look at?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah, no, I don't disagree with
Certainly be
that.
open to talk about that.
I'm not.
If we were going to do something like that, I mean, you're looking a year ahead of time to be able.
No, that would
I mean,
it would be next year.
It sounds like what I read from this is you're asking us to approve this reorganization, and you're saying you're going to save $85,000 in your budget. Is that the number I saw?
That would have been past cost savings. That's not an ongoing.
Okay, but it's going to be neutral anyway.
Like $85,000 every year going forward.
Yeah, this is just this year, then you're saying.
I'd say you're asking for too much.
But I would agree that we, as a board, I'm sitting here as a commissioner, getting into your business. You're telling me to give you permission to do what you need to do. And it just seems, I agree with Sam. It's just.
I kind of think we have so much
hard. It's a harder way to do this.
That's what I'm looking at.
I think if I could just real quick, for administration to make changes like this, for us to go into the payroll system and adjust a position's pay, we need to take that guidance from the Board of Commissioners. And in order for the Board of Commissioners to tell me to change something from a classified 10 to a classified 7, district court needs to come and ask you that for you to tell me that. And that's the process.
That's the way it is today. And I understand it. Yeah, and that's what they're asking for today. I just threw this out there about, is this something we should maybe take a look at?
Sure. As opposed to a line item budget at some point in the future, if that was negotiated, there was a lump sum allocation. Then from a payroll standpoint,
Jen and Charlie and Brian, from a court administration standpoint, would put our budget together, and we've got 20 employees, and we make the payroll allocation, and we would tell payroll, this is our allocation. But we still have to cover all of our expenses out of that, and we can't willy-nilly say, oh, we're going to load it all up in payroll and then come back to the county and say, we don't have any money for anything else. Obviously, it would be, there's your allocation, and you manage your funds appropriately within that allocation.
It'd be bad if you had to tell the governor you had to shut their court down.
Yeah.
But spent the money or didn't spend
I
it.
have a question for you. That's the pro about it. What is the con about it? What do you see that would be a problem down, like, this is anybody in the room. So we give you X amount of dollars.
Well, really, Jan, that's down the road. That's down the road talk. We probably need to deal with what they're asking tonight. But I would like to see maybe somebody look at that.
Yeah. Because there are pros and cons, and I'm sure there'd be pros and cons from the county standpoint.
Yeah, we've worked very hard to build a team throughout the county, not just an administration team or just a district court team, but everybody as a team. And we've tried to build fair and equitable wages between departments so that employees aren't always just vying to get into district court in their clerk position. All the clerk positions that work at the same, compensated fairly and at the same. And so that could be a potential con where.
Yeah. And that's always, that's a difficult thing to do because the arguments are on both sides of the fence. It's great that you can have that equity, but you also get the argument, are we comparing truly apples with apples and oranges with oranges? And are they the same level of responsibility and
knowledge and, requirements. I mean, I can't send one of my clerks in to the sheriff's department as a corrections officer. There are different qualifications, different requirements, right? So is a clerk? Yes and no, right? And it depends. And that's not to demean any.
Name only.
Yeah, that's not
Your duties are.
any office or any organization. It really depends on the functions of the office and the responsibilities and the assignments.
And Chris, to that point, I think what has been developed here is an attempt to overcome some of that internally, because what we've had happen within clerks' positions that are not at the same pay or not doing the same job duties, people try to ratchet up into whatever position it is, and that causes some internal turnover. And so you get somebody trained just enough that they're starting to get good and they see and they want to jump within. So what's been developed here with the new job description for the clerks is that everybody will be trained the same. Everybody will have similar duties. And we experience that with our probation staff as well, where we have the specialty court probation officers who require the same amount of education, same amount of time, training. In fact, they have to do a little more training than the probation officer for the county at a grade lower. So they've always had their eyes on we have a responsibility as a regional fiduciary to our courts. So I've got, probation officer that's that position that's vacant in Clinton County, Montcalm County. And so we're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul internally with these positions too. So I think this helps alleviate that internally within the structure.
And then the movement is still, because under the county system, they still go through the steps. So they'll be on different steps depending on their years of experience and their longevity. But I mean, I can summarize the request because it breaks down between the 4 positions that are identified in district court: probation officer 10 to deputy clerk 7, deputy clerk 6 to the 7, administrative assistant 6 to a deputy clerk 7, and then the collections manager 5 to a 6. And then the reclassification of the 3 probation officer 9s to probation officer 10. The supporting documentation and the finance breakdown is all accompanying the letter. But there is a net savings overall to the county if all those classifications are granted. And so we believe that it suits our needs not only now, but going into the future. And we don't anticipate, good Lord forbid, unless the state does something dramatic, that we're going to be coming back here saying, oh, by the way, we want another district court probation officer. We do not anticipate that. Now, I guess I can't stand here and promise never is never, but I don't see any reason under our current structure and under the way that we're required to operate now, that with that staffing, especially with support staffs in the deputy clerk's position, you need another probation officer. And frankly, I think I would be abusing my fiduciary responsibility and not being a good steward of your finances and the county taxpayers' money if I just went ahead and filled that vacant probation officer position at a higher rate of pay. Because first of all, they'd say, I'm not a clerk, I'm not doing that work. And there wouldn't be enough work to justify having 2 of them. And they're going to be sitting around half the time, and that's a waste of money. And I'm not going to waste taxpayers' money. I want the organization to be productive. And it's the clerks. If you ever go by here at 4:30 and you look at our operation, there's usually 2 or 3 clerks there, because it's the clerks that are working the overtime. It's the clerks that are working extra. It's the clerks that are finishing up the paperwork to get it to the jail at 4:30 and 4:45 because there've been late arraignments or there've been late arrests and things like that. It's just the nature of the business. And we want to stop that. We want to rein that back in. But Sam,
Real briefly, so you're saying, is it because you've not hired probation officers, or are you saying because you're taking the deputy clerk from 10 or to a 7 or?
Well, the probation officer is currently at 10, and that's the vacant. That's where Abby Frisbee left and went to Dow. So her position is vacant. And instead of filling that with another probation officer, we'd want that position reclassified to a deputy clerk 7. And the pay grades verified by Chris and Sheila are in the back. And that shows that the dollar difference and it shows the savings.
You don't foresee us needing another probation officer?
No, well, because we don't just have one. We have 4 because Brian has 3 and we have 1 in district court. So we really have 4 and Brian's 3 are doing LSIR assessments for us and for district court. They're doing IDA assessments.
So a lot of that, the addition of any of those cases at the district court level have been funneled into our treatment courts. So our DWI court and our mental health court, those probation officers are supervising those individuals that would otherwise be on a standard caseload and require a whole lot of attention. Well, the benefit of these programs is that the state completely funds them for us.
And they're the higher intensity probation. They're the more intensive supervised intensity, intensive probation.
And we're diverting folks out of the jail as well. So that's saving additional tax dollars along the way and man hours from the sheriff and his staff. So it's kind of a win-win with the specialty courts. The county's not funding it. And we're getting a whole lot of cost savings from it.
And the Office of Community Supervision is really where that concept comes in, because not only do we have the specialty courts, but we have OCC, and with OCC and the specialty courts and our probation officer all being down there together, they're all maximizing their productivity because they're not duplicating case management information and case system information. They're sharing it rather than duplicating it, keeping it separate. And so that's been very helpful. And our OCC is very active with the sheriff's department. I mean, they're over there every day and on weekends too. So, I mean, we couldn't do this in a vacuum. We've got to do it with the sheriff's department, with the prosecutors, with probation, with the specialty courts. But I mean, they work closely and cooperatively there too. And it's helpful all the way around. I mean, when the jail was on COVID status, we got 20 people or more out of jail in a very short period of time. Safely. I want to say safely. I mean, we don't just open the doors and say, see ya. But all of a sudden, Brian's ordering 10 and 15 more tethers, and then they're supervising those because they're either supervised inside by the sheriff's staff or they're supervised outside in the community and on tethers. And some of those, we get them back to work, then they're paying us back. And the other thing about collections, and that is an upgrade, no question about it, but the dollars are reflected. But collections, in my opinion, from the beginning was underclassified. And the amount of work involved, and Sheila rescored it and said, yeah, that should definitely be reclassified to the 6. And I think I'll be happy to report, give us another budget year and we'll be back here, I think, showing you some greatly increased returns from the collections efforts. Charlie and Brian and our collections manager have worked tirelessly to streamline that process and make it more effective. It was just drifting because she didn't have any support. She's over there in an office alone. And now we've got her incorporated with OCC. That may be some of the physical plant changes that haven't fully come to fruition, but it's important that they're all down there together because they touch the case from beginning to end.
So if no further questions, I think we're looking for a motion to approve the proposed court reorganization. Somebody else has a motion by Commissioner Lemmerman. Do we have a second? Support. I heard you first, George, by Commissioner Bailey. Any further discussion? Oh, you want to do a roll call? All right, we'll do a roll call. Angie advice.
When?
What's the effective date?
Immediately.
today?
I'll be the next, it would be the next pay period. Yeah,
Is that
that's usually that's normally the case.
Because we just had one.
Yeah, you just had one, so it'll be the next pay period. Which would be,
Yes,
July 3rd is a Sunday, that's when the pay period starts.
would be the first day of the.
so starting yesterday, will be a pay period, I'm advised?
she got enough time to put it in the system?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Does it be going forward?
yeah, I have no objection.
Okay, any further discussion? Well, I guess we're ready for a roll call.
Commissioner Bunting,
Yes.
Commissioner Lummer,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey,
Yes,
Commissioner Murphy.
Yes, motion passed. Thank you.
thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Full year, yes.
Okay, next on the,
Before we go, next, is there like a second issue now that we want to?
You should maybe run this by Tracy. Which
I think there sounds like there's consensus that we want to look at your proposal.
better handle. I just briefly,
Yeah, we could run it by the
she gets back to
administrator.
stuff. We
See what, and we can put it on the agenda for the next meeting to talk about. I mean,
well,
or like,
I just look at it and see if if it might not be something viable, you know. Who knows?
I was encouraged that they seemed very supportive
Yeah.
of the idea as well.
well,
To a certain extent, the courts
they would have to come back.
operate that way already. I mean, Jennifer would, when we sit down to do her budgets, she looks at the budgets for every court and she looks at the salaries for everybody. And every year she's moving salary from one court to another where they seem to be performing more of the duties as things evolve throughout the year. So that's something that's not completely correct.
I think what Sam says something that is valid. For the last several years now, we have had a budget. But during that budget year, there's always one or two department heads have to come back or want to come back and change their classifications or change a salary or change something else. And I think, and I agree with Sam, we need to connect that with a budget year. In other words, why to have a budget if you're gonna keep changing?
The only savings we're getting here by reclassifying these people is we lost a prosecutor.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my next question was gonna be, when you move this guy down 3 steps, does that take care of 8 steps going up? Yeah, the prosecutor steps must have been big.
I agree with you. I don't think we should be hearing cases all the time, and it's not unusual. I mean, this has been normal for the last several years. They come back and they want more money for this. They've seen this coming down the line. This isn't something that happened yesterday. All right, so I would like to be able to tie these things into a budget year. And I don't know what the mechanism to do that is, but
I could see once you got your staff, like Mike's staff, you've got however many employees under him. And then all of a sudden, if something happened, got a grant, we got some money, we got to do this, and we're one short an officer or something, him coming back and saying, I need another X amount of dollars to put an officer on. And then we're really not saying, well, pick Charlie, don't pick Joe, we're not in.
talking about the position, we're not talking about a person.
Something we believe you need an extra officer. Or they can come back and say, our caseload, the state did this and we got to hire a prosecutor. We just tell them we're working on Saturdays or something, Then we would look at that and say, you're right. And the state's going to pay a bulk of it or something. The same with Angie's operation or.
Yeah.
I just think it'd be easier, but maybe you can't even do it.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Some of the ideas sound good, but I don't know in reality if they really work. I don't.
Yeah.
I just think something, not a light switch idea. It's not, click the switch. Now we're in the new system.
Yeah, that's tomorrow. No, I think you have to look at it.
Yeah.
And you have to look at every department. I mean, you look at her, she's got different clerks that just do court work or whatever.
Fundamentally, to me, when I have a budget, I don't like to break that budget up unless it's an extenuating circumstances, but we change salaries all the time. We're doing this, we're doing that. And I'm thinking to myself, why do we have a budget? We don't stick to it.
I mean, those are things that go through my mind is, well, we go through all this trouble to have a budget, but then when the people come in, you know, to be fair, we haven't gotten into trouble over it, but we just seem to be always being asked to kick in a little more.
Well, it sounds like you're trying to determine who should determine where our employees are classified. Should it be the department head? Should it be HR and administration? Should it be the board of commissioners? And I guess that's the question that you're looking at. Who should determine?
It's not an easy question. But I think you look at it in September, and when you bring that budget in, you say, here we are. And we can say, yeah, you know, it all works, Chris. It all works. And so you give these guys this much money and there you go.
Because I agree with Sam. I don't know what the court does. I don't know what all these people do. And so for us to sit here and say yes or no, you know, if it's to make it, I guess, easier for us to make a decision, we give it to the different units and let them spend it the way.
I guess we're being asked to do something that we don't know anything about.
Yeah.
I've got to quote Tracy just because she's not here. That's why she wanted to bring someone in to do a classification study to tell you what those positions.
But you see what happens though. I still believe in that. And we had this conversation the other day. A couple other people is that you classify everybody. And so if Angie's supposed to be a 6 and she's getting paid at an 8, we take her down and we raise John up to a 9.
Yeah.
You got nowhere to go but up.
You got pluses or minuses with those classes.
Plus or minus, because Angie ain't going to a 6. Whatever our study says, you know, there's where you run into problems. And it's just somebody's opinion.
Yeah.
You know, versus they don't work with these people either. You know, I mean, Mike knows his people and, you know, everybody ought to get whatever the raise is. And
Well, like in mine, you gotta have some flexibility in your budget. And Chris does a good job working with us to get some flexibility in budget. I have people that are retiring that are at the top of the scale and hiring people at the bottom of the scale, so I'm saving money. But if I get somebody that's got 15 years experience that wants to hire in, I can move them up and down on that step 2 or step 3 or step 4 to get them to entice them to come here to work for me. And I got that flexibility within my budget.
Yeah.
I don't come to ask you guys, hey, I just hired a guy the other day, can I start him at step 3? I don't ask you guys that, I just do it.
Exactly. I was about ready to say when we're doing all this, the sheriff doesn't come back and every time he wants to hire somebody, you don't ask us. It's just the way it is. Yeah.
I have somebody currently trying to entice another department, trying to entice one of my employees to come and work for them because there are people making money, you know, which happens.
Yeah.
No. It's alone. I know it's not you. I know that.
Yeah. Okay,
All right,
move on.
let's see. Next up is the Juneteenth issue. Sheila's supposed to be handling this. Is she?
I don't see her.
I don't see her. You know what?
I can handle.
You want to handle it, Chris?
And I can speak on it too.
Okay, yeah, because I had a question for you.
So at the June 7th meeting, the board approved Juneteenth to be a holiday this year for county employees. What was not discussed is that employees in POAM holidays are handled differently than they are for the rest of the employees. POAM, what they do is they pay out 12 hours of paid time once a year to their employees for each holiday that they have. Currently, they get paid, I believe it is in September, for 150 hours of service for their holidays.
And that's including the holidays that we had before Juneteenth, right?
Correct. So there was 12 and a half holidays, which at 12 hours per is 150 hours.
Well, you got a half a day for Good Friday, so there's
12 and a half.
12, yeah, 12, and then the 0.5 is Good Friday.
Okay.
So that equals 150 hours. So we need to address that with the sheriff's department if the board is interested in compensating them for an additional 12 hours.
So if I can explain a little bit further, I'll come up here. Our employees, when they work Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, Thanksgiving, day after Thanksgiving, those are all county holidays.
they only get paid straight time for working those holidays. So you work on Christmas, you're just making straight time. Used to be, I believe, double time. But in order to alleviate that, where you were paying people and then guys are going, well, how come this employee got this amount of holidays and I only got this amount of holidays? The county went to the 150-hour system. So now with this as a national holiday and a county holiday, it's technically a holiday. Yesterday was technically a holiday for my guys and they got paid straight time. So what it boils down to is it needs to be a 13.5 check instead of a 12.5 check for them. And the reason is because the courthouse is off, my guys are working. So that's why. And they just make their straight time on any holiday. Doesn't matter what holiday it is. Doesn't matter if it's President's Day, Memorial Day, 4th of July. Because this is just another holiday added in. So I know there's 3 proposals in the project and keep it straight for me instead of trying to add in 12 hours of time off for everybody. The easier way is to just make this a 13.5 instead of 12.5, in my opinion.
And that basically makes it right for everybody on your staff then?
Yep.
Is that what you're saying?
Everybody, every full-time employee gets that check with the exclusion of one person, that's me.
And if that's the way the board would like to go, I would suggest they do it for 2 years until negotiations are open back up.
Yep, which will be next summer.
Okay, and that was my question. It should be for the contract.
Yes.
You know, it should be
Yeah,
to go.
it will be negotiated into the contract. And what I would do is if you guys approve it, I would just do a letter of agreement with the POAM and COAM to have it done that way.
Mike, how many guys worked yesterday?
Let's see. So we had 4, 7, 14.
So when you look at your 150 hours, these gentlemen get 150 hour pay for being here 5 days a week? They don't catch no holidays?
Who's that?
The gentlemen on
The probation.
So most of them are part-time with the exception of Deputy Freed. Part-time does not get it.
So, but he works here 5 days a week?
Yeah.
And so he gets 150 hours for overtime?
No. No,
You don't get 150 hours?
They're part-time.
Oh, no, you got a full-time guy here.
Scott Freed gets the 150-hour check.
But he works 5 days a week, never catches a holiday.
Depends on what the holiday falls on.
If it's a Tuesday, he's not here. He'll catch a holiday.
Yep.
But if you look at like your people who work in your office staff there, do they work, some work 5 days or like lieutenants work weekends or do they work rotations?
So here's what happens on a holiday, Sam, if they get called in. Say we have something catastrophic on Christmas Day. They're already being paid. They just come in and work. And that's an understanding that we have with them. So you're on call on holidays, even if you're off, based on a court thing, court holiday.
I'm just wondering, is there a lot of people to get this $150 hours that don't work holidays?
Yeah, there are a few, but they are on call. So if they get called out, they just come in, they're already being paid.
If they don't get called, they're lucky.
Yeah.
But I think this holiday was just thrown on us, we threw it in here 3 weeks ago and I didn't feel, when you looked at it, they closed the banks up. They decided to do that in a couple of weeks. They decided to close the stock market down. They just decided to do this all in a month or 6 weeks time.
I knew when this got approved, my guys keep an eye on the commissioners meeting, you know what I mean? And then when they got approved, they're like, oh, that's another county holiday. So what are we going to do about?
Pick one you want to give us back.
Well, then the county would have to give back a holiday too. See, and that was negotiated a few years ago. We took on Martin Luther King, but they give back a holiday. And I don't remember which, maybe it was Columbus Day, they give back or something to do that. If the county would give back another holiday and keep on Juneteenth, then we'd be okay at the 150, but I don't think the courthouse is going to do that at this point. I think they're gonna have the 13 and a half days off over here paid.
Goes back to that conversation we had earlier. Government employees are treated a lot different than the private sector. They have been forever. That's why a lot of people like to work in the government.
I guess that could be a reason why they tend to be paid a little less too.
Yeah, they get other things. They get perks, but other people in the private sector don't get. So it's a trade-off.
And I had, we had our Youth Police Academy start yesterday. So I had people that really would have been off because of a holiday yesterday, they come in and work. Because we already had that scheduled. We've had that scheduled for a year. So it is what it is. They're not concerned about it.
Helicopter come in yesterday.
Yeah.
Kind of cool.
Any more questions?
I'll make a motion that we go ahead and allow the 13.5 for the sheriff's department.
Motion by Commissioner Bailey to approve this.
Second it.
Second by Commissioner Lemmerman. Any further discussion or any discussion?
So this will be the length of the contract, so it'll happen next year too then.
Well, we'll discuss it.
So I have it effective June 20th, 2022 until September 30th, 2023.
That's the way contract reads. Is that according to?
That's when that ends.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
And then I would do a letter of agreement with the union. So it's,
Well, that has to be, yeah, that has.
It's both unions, right, Mike?
yeah, it's both unions.
PAM and COAM?
Yes.
Okay, any further discussion?
Roll call.
The only thing I would add further to it is I think this was the intent of the feds when they made this a holiday. You know? That's the only
I think
comment.
we all have our opinion, but we can't discuss it.
Yeah.
Roll call. Commissioner Lumberman,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey,
Yes.
Commissioner Bunting,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy.
Yes. Motion passed. So,
Okay.
all right, looks like you're back up here, Mike, on the live scan.
That's gonna be, Matt.
Oh, Matt, that's right.
Yep, that's actually me tonight. So what I wanted to discuss was we had a capital improvement project on the budget this year to replace the aging live scan machine that's over at the Sheriff's Department lobby location. And live scan is the machine that they use to scan people's fingerprints into the AFIS system. Budget, let's see, it was budgeted at $16,000 on the capital improvement plan. We reached out to two vendors that can do this type of work in the state of Michigan. One is HID Global and the other was ID Networks. HID Global came in at around $17,000 and then the ID Networks proposal was around $10,000. ID Networks is the company that we currently do business with for these types of machines, and they're able to offer us a discount because they're we would be trading in equipment, our old equipment. Yeah, my recommendation would be to go with ID Networks because their bid was lower and because we're already doing business with them. So it's going to be easier to train our staff and support the system once it's in place.
Will we go with ID system or whatever it is?
You can figure out those easy ones.
Yeah, ID Networks.
Okay, that's the one.
Okay,
I support.
we have a motion and support, but if it's all right with everybody, I'd like to ask the sheriff if you approve of this.
I do, because the fingerprint machine in the lobby is getting outdated. That is where we do our concealed pistol licenses. Anybody coming over from court that needs to be printed, that it wasn't printed when they were arrested, if they were given a ticket. It works well on the lobby and it is quite old.
I guess it doesn't matter, but is that system hooked up to wherever you like bring them in, like the fingerprint ones?
We have one in back too, in the booking room and one in the lobby. So we actually have two and they're all
Two scanner units go to a thing. I see.
together and go right to the station.
Yeah.
And you agree with the ID Networks bid?
Yeah, because that's what we have.
All right. We have a motion on the floor then to approve this. Any discussion? All righty, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay? Motion passed.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Chris. Next, we have a drain assessment. I'm assuming you're handling this, Chris?
Yep. So we just received a prepayment option for drain 189 from the drain commissioner in the past week and a half. The principal payoff for this drain is $64,351.78. This amount is not budgeted for. I asked the drain commission's office what the rate was of the last loan that they financed the drain with. It wasn't, the last one that they did was in March and I was at 2%. So I'm expecting this one's probably gonna be closer to 3.5%, 4%. I know that is gonna start playing a factor in whether we would choose to pay them off ahead of time or not. So,
This would come out of the fund balance?
this would come out of general fund balance. If you so choose. I'll open it up for discussion or questions.
Well, we're not getting 3% on our money now, are we?
I don't think we're gonna get 3%. I mean, I think they're gonna charge more than 3%.
They're gonna get it.
Yeah,
They can-
or maybe more.
We're not getting any of that. I mean, we're not getting that,
No, it's,
any of our money.
my opinion, we just pay it off.
So the investment seminar that we had on Friday proposed that our portfolio balance across the entire spectrum of everything we got would be 3.29. And I believe that did not take into account the 0.75% rate hike that happened on last Wednesday. I think he had created those numbers. I don't know for sure. Perhaps I'm wrong on that, but
You're probably right.
I think that I guess I think we should do this, but it's getting to the point where it's not a no-brainer anymore.
Yeah, I kind
When you
of suck it.
something.
Where they're gonna borrow the money, whether or get it from that lady or wherever they get their funds, it's 4% is gonna be a starting point, I'll bet you.
Yeah.
They're gonna,
So do we need a motion for this, Chris?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I'll make that motion.
All right, motion by Commissioner Lemmerman. We have a second.
Sport.
Support by Commissioner Smith. Any discussion? Probably should roll call on this for that.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey,
yes.
Commissioner Bunting,
Yes.
Commissioner Lumberman,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy.
Yes. Motion passed. All right. Don't believe we have any unfinished business. Anyone have any? Looking.
Motion that we go into the finance meeting?
Motion to move to the finance meeting.
Sport.
It's a motion by Commissioner Bailey, support by Commissioner Smith. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay? Motion passed. So John?
All righty. Guess we'll call this meeting to order and I'll let you go ahead, Chris, and start off with the June report.
Okay, so staying right on task for the drain prepayments. Prior to that approval, we had approved 168,000 so far for the year. So this will bring us up into the $232,000 range. As far as ARP funds and project list updated, the ARP list was uploaded into communications for this meeting, if anybody is interested in looking at that. One thing that I did forget prior to the deadline for board book was to put together the list of ARP projects that were not funded that were brought to the board. So that was prepared earlier today. It was uploaded into the extras for the public and it was placed in front of you for future reference for decisions that we may need to make down the road for ARP projects. The only change in the presentation of the numbers is the unencumbered amount. I did update that for the $10,000 that the board approved 2 meetings ago for tether expenses that were related to protecting the jail from COVID outbreaks. Just to update the board on a couple new funds that we created in accounting over the last 4 weeks. We were advised to create an opioid settlement fund by the lawyers that represented us in the opioid litigation. I haven't heard an update from them in about a month when they sent this notification out for us to prepare for first payment for the opioid settlement. We created a new fund, 262 for sheriff's sales. In the current law enforcement environment, we have in Gratiot County, we've significantly increased the number of sales of confiscated items in the sheriff's department to where we felt it would be best for finance and for the sheriff to create a new fund to track sales and purchase of what purchases that he makes using this. The law does restrict what it can be used on, so this makes it just easier for anybody who would be interested in making sure that we are following the law, the sheriff included.
Who do you do those sales through?
We do a lot of online auction. So we'll go through like Sherwood Auction Service and they'll post them and sell the stuff. And then the money that comes from these sales can be used for equipment, uniforms and stuff like that. So that's how I want to track this, make sure we're spending that right. It's not being mixed in.
Is it getting to the point where it's going to be a real plus for your budget this year?
We went and changed, I don't know if you noticed, a lot of my guys that are courthouse personnel are wearing black uniforms, but they are lightweight and breathable. And we bought all them new uniforms, which is quite a cost, out of confiscated money.
Cool. So if you look at the revenue and expenditure report provided, you'll see Fund 262 sheriff sales. Under total revenues, you see a negative $12,840.95. That is in the negative because it wasn't I'm sorry, it's also in the positive to the left, but it's in the negative because it was just created and hadn't been budgeted for. Prior to creating this fund, the activity was recorded in the general fund. So it wasn't an area where there was budget for it. But to track it better, we pulled it out of the general fund and moved it into 262. Now, I wanted to bring this to your attention because the reports that I have giving to you this month, I've added funds to it. And I want to explain that to you. I don't want you to ever think that there's funds that would be hidden or not transparent. So that's just a part of the process of reporting to the board, part of my process.
Adding the funds to it, it's always showing as a red or as in parentheses, right?
No, what that is showing is if you amount remaining in the budget. When it's in the red, it's a negative amount. And that's because it's new and it hasn't been budgeted.
Okay.
So I will need to bring a budget amendment to you in order to get it back in the black. Correct.
Okay.
But you're really over in the account. You spent $8,000, you got 12 in.
Correct.
That's why
We have a,
Still got over. You got $4,000, yeah.
you have zero to spend.
It's just the way you're accounting. Yeah.
but because it's a restricted
Zero.
money, we've now put it in a restricted account instead of the general fund. The last item I wanted to bring up to you under the new funds created is we've created a new project underneath in the general fund for Veterans Affairs. Project 29 is going to represent veterans donations. And this is something that Nancy Bozar is going to come and talk to you in detail in the next meeting. what this is for is it's going to track donations and expenditures for the Hero Center that she will be discussing with you. And I'm excited to hear that, and hopefully you will be too if you haven't heard of it yet. MERS OPEB balance as of, let's find a better, oh, it's not supporting my picture.
Some card in there.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's go ahead. Commissioner Murphy was kind enough to lend me his paper copy. Sometimes electronic is not always the best. For the calendar year, our MERS OPEB is down 10.8%. Compared to the S&P at the date that I ran this on June 16th, the S&P was down 20.9%. What we saw at that same time, though, is we saw interest rates have been raised. And if you'll remember, the latest explanation from MERS about protection is investing in things that where stocks may go down, but interest rates go up, we can balance out and not feel the extreme pain of just the stock market. So I was very happy to see the diversification in our investments was working there in our OPEB account. Lastly, I was going to touch on the county millage review. After discussion with Commissioner Lumberman, just to update from the last time, we decided to bump this review to a future date. Next item up on the agenda is the May cash balances. For the end of May, we see a decrease, a fairly significant decrease in the general fund from $5 million to $3.9 million. There are actually three different factors that account for that. The first one is in financial services, we're doing a better job of, on a regular quarterly basis, charging departments for retirement and charging departments for indirect costs. And May happens to be one of those months that is that those expenses got divvied out on. The second one is May was also a month where we distributed money from the general fund to other funds that rely on the general fund, such as the child care fund, such as the landfill, and friend of the court, different departments that rely heavily on general fund money. And the third is in the prior fiscal year in May, that is when we received settlement from the delinquent tax fund. And so in May, we did not receive that revenue influx for this settlement from the delinquent tax fund as of yet. So those three factors show a decrease that happened in May, where in past years, those decreases were spread out in future months. Well, questions, I will move on to the check register. I'll allow you to review the check register, and Commissioner Lumberman, if there's no questions, let me know when the appropriate time to move on would be.
I saw one here, Chris, 227, in Michigan District Health Department, 24,298. You know what that was? On
a quarterly basis, we
that the quarter
pay
payment
appropriations to Mid-Michigan, I believe somewhere in the neighborhood of 187,000 for a year.
Close to 200, I know that.
Yeah, okay. So that was a monthly.
Can't look it up exactly.
It was down a little bit this year.
Mid-Michigan Health.
District.
Yep, that was our monthly appropriation.
Monthly, we're doing that monthly. Okay. And one other I noticed, 519 to Isabella Bank, 148,000. Transfer. That's right.
That will be a bond payment from Drain.
Is it a bond? Transfer.
Does anybody else have any questions? I think we can move on.
Okay. The last item that I have for presentation and review, the board is the May revenue and expenditure report. If anybody has any questions on that.
I think you've said this before, Chris, if wherever budget amendments are needed, we're just going to do that all in one fell swoop, probably sometime in August.
That is correct. Now, if something were to be going awry, or if somebody is spending more than they have in their fund, that is something that I would bring to the board meeting. For example, if we talked about the sheriff's sales fund, if they had spent $25,000 out of there and only had 12,000, and I knew that that was going to have a negative effect on the general fund, I would discuss that with the sheriff. If we have a plan that the general fund would need to help that, then I would bring that to you immediately. I would not wait to show you something that would have a negative effect on our budget till the end of the year, if I knew about it.
So no news is good news.
Yes, absolutely.
So we have news, it's bad.
Not necessarily. You're gonna tell us you found a bunch of money?
I would definitely tell you.
One thing I was wondering, on the general fund, if I understand this correctly, you're showing a total expenditures of 58.84%. And we're 67% through the year.
That is correct.
So do you feel we're gonna stay about 59, 60%, or are we gonna end up getting closer to the 67?
Are you asking where I would project we finish at the end of the year?
Yeah, but if we end up, if we kept that, we'd have a pretty good surplus, right?
I would expect that that we will end somewhere between 93 and 96% of our budget.
Thank you.
Without any surprises, and there could be many. For example, we haven't seen the true effect of gas prices on our budget yet, because you see it on a daily basis, but when you start piling month after month, that's where.
Well,
I should say, I think we budgeted. One of the departments I'm having a problem with is car maintenance, because those prices have skyrocketed too. We may have to move some money around in my budget in August to cover that.
then we've got other county funds that use gas that we may not have put enough in.
Well, and if this report is as of end of May,
Yeah.
it could have been that gas was only averaging 450 in the month of May.
Right.
We'll find out in October.
Yeah.
But when the sheriff and I talk about budget, we talk about where are we at today. We don't talk about where are we at the last completed month.
Yeah. Any other?
Like when we put the extra 10 grand in for like tethers, and I'm not sure how this works, so like the court people tell you, okay, let Charlie go, put a tether on it. And you're really, the tethers come from your account.
That's probably under the OCC account, isn't it?
AR, that gets charged directly to the ARP.
Right to the ARP.
There you go.
Yeah, it's ARP.
That way, everything that you guys approve, you'll see it in your spot.
They make no decision to let the guy go. You just put the thing on.
Right, Judge McDonald was, saying, okay, we're gonna release so-and-so, they can clap a tether on them, they get charged, I think it's $400 hookup and then daily monitoring fee. And we're not getting them, we're not.
You're not having to worry about code.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Chris? I think we're ready for the treasurer's report.
Hello. In your packets, you have my reports, revenue report, and the bank transfer reports. As Commissioner Lumberman stated, he, Chris, and myself had I considered positive meeting Friday morning with Meter Investments, which is it's an advisory investment company. We're early in the talks, but I thought it was very positive. Anything you'd like to add, Chris?
Just an exploratory
Yep.
meeting to see what types of services are out there.
Chris, in that meeting, said, I believe you said, that when you came here in 2017, that our interest income on our investments was $110,000. And that last year, our interest income on our investments was $40,000, even though we have vastly larger deposits. And am I thinking right, Chris, that if we're at 13 million in that May sheet all across, when you got all our balances on there at 3.29%, we're talking there for interest income. $10 million, aren't we over? If it was $10 million, we'd be over $320,000.
Right.
So I'm excited at the possibilities that interest or yield on the company's cash could be a real significant aid to our balance sheet, for a few years here while we got the windmill money coming in.
I remember correctly, he ran a scenario that estimated we could be getting in the neighborhoods of $700,000 in investment income annually.
Yeah.
That is what he said, yes.
Which is
Real money.
Yeah.
Significant.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's real money.
Yeah.
is a large department.
The peanuts we've been getting.
Right.
But that's been the case across the board. I mean, that's the way it is, but.
So I was happy with the meeting. I thought it was very positive. And like Commissioner Lumberman said, we have not sat down and talked about it since, but I was happy with it.
Me too.
So, does anybody have any other questions? Okay, well, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Is there any public comment? Yeah, do you see anything online for public comment?
I'm not seeing anybody else connected in right now.
All right, I guess I would like a motion to go back into the regular meeting.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Alrighty. Thank you, John. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve the expenses for.
Do
The expense report.
Yeah.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Bailey's motion, second by Commissioner Lemmerman. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay. Motion passed. And you asked for public comment, so I don't see anybody in the room and still nobody online, Matt. So without objection, we're adjourned.